Hi guys! Today I'm going to be talking about something very important to me and something that I just want to spread awareness about. There is a very common actually eating disorder that a lot of people don't know about, and I thought it was really interesting. To me, I thought if you have an eating disorder, you have to have some kind of body issue that, you're trying to lose weight, it's intentional, like you don't like how you look, like you're trying to get skinnier, you're making yourself throw up. But there's actually a very common eating disorder that most people haven't heard of. I actually have even taken psychology classes. I study psychology at UCSD, and we even had like a whole section on eating disorders, and I had still never heard of it. So this eating disorder is avoidant food restriction disorder. So it's a little different. You're not like obsessed with weight and counting calories and you're trying to lose weight. What it is you have almost an aversion to food, almost like a disinterest. And I think actually quite a few people have this that are unaware. I think that there's lines, there's levels to things. So a very common symptom is picky eating. So that doesn't mean, well, I'm picky, I don't like eating this, do I have this disorder? Not necessarily, and you just have to talk to a doctor, before any formal diagnosis. But I think it's really important to talk about because a lot of people meet the criteria and they don't even know about getting it looked at, and actually a lot of doctors don't even know about it because it's been so recently added to the DSM. It was added in 2013, which in the psychology world, I feel like that's really, really recent. And I feel like they don't even really know that much about it. So one of the things I was reading is that it's very common for neurodivergent people, and especially people with autism. They were saying that it is thought that 20% of people who are autistic are at high risk for suffering from this. So it's really good to be aware of and to, because you don't want to be, like, for example, it's really bad if you force someone with this disorder to eat when they don't want to. So, there are plenty of parents who they think they're doing something good, I have to get my kid to eat. I'm just going to force them to eat what's on the table. Like, you're going to eat whatever I give to you. I don't care if you don't like the texture, just suck it up like I did and eat it. And, I actually remember like gagging, and my dad was just kind of like, you're being unreasonable. Like, this is an unreasonable reaction to, I think it was like some kind of sausage, but it was just so gross to me. And, and again, there is a difference. Like, it's hard because, kids want to just eat mac and cheese and they don't really, want to eat vegetables. So that's kind of like a natural issue. But when it comes to more specific issues, it's very common for people with this disorder to have fears, like fear of throwing up or fear of choking. I don't have that personally, although I do have like a very disinterest, a very lack of interest in food. I could go very easily without eating for prolonged periods and not really notice. And, and that's very common with ADHD as well. It's hard for, most people, they feel when they're hungry. I could go a day or two without eating and I won't really feel a difference. So it's actually really dangerous. You have to really, like, for people who don't know that they have this issue. So if you do, it's really important that you're aware of this and that, you have like a food journal, that you're counting your calories. And, it's kind of the opposite of most eating disorders, because usually it's the opposite. You don't count calories, like make sure you're eating more, like eat enough. And with this one, you actually have to count calories to make sure you're eating enough. And so, I found it really upsetting because I noticed that, when I went to the doctor, they told me, I was worried about malnutrition. And they said that if I did the lab test and everything looked okay, that everything was fine. And, I very recently was reading about this disorder, and I saw one article talking about how you could actually have completely normal tests. And the way that your body works is it it keeps things looking normal, even though your body is like super stressed, it makes everything seem okay. And you could be on the brink of death and not know. So it's super, super, super important for people to know, like, even if your tests say, oh, your blood levels are okay, there's nothing we're concerned about, that doesn't matter. You still need to be making sure that you're not struggling with malnutrition, which actually is very common in the US in general. I think it was a crazy statistic. I'll double check, but I feel like it was like 70 or 80% almost in the US struggle with it. And I'll double check and add it at the end. But that's crazy. And for, the US is such a, like, it's not a third world country. So why are so many people like lacking nutrition? And those people, many of them are eating more than enough. It's just the food doesn't have nutrients. So I like to post videos and talk about like recipes that are nutrient dense. And some people don't like the word superfood. Like they see that as a buzzword to, this is dumb, this is not credible, I shouldn't listen. But there are foods that I would consider superfoods because, like, for example, wild blueberries, they have like, I believe 10 times the antioxidants of a normal blueberry. So if you could just get yourself to eat a little bit of this at breakfast, already you're off to a great start, nutritionally. And I love to incorporate seeds into my diet. They have a lot, especially hemp seeds, have so many good, fiber and just good things for your nutrition. So I just think it's really important because this is such, an under the radar illness, and that's actually really dangerous. Like I'm studying psychology in the hopes of becoming a counselor, and I hadn't even heard of it until I was looking up my own symptoms. So, it's hard because that's, really dangerous. Like there should be some kind of update or something for, current doctors or psychiatrists, especially because, I was able to find medicine that helped me dramatically. It, even when I would take a little bit, it does make you pretty sleepy. But for me, I take ADHD medicine. So if I take it in the morning, I can get hungry. And it's amazing. It's so crazy for me because my specific issue is, I don't have a fear of choking or throwing up. So it's a little easier for me. I can take something to stimulate my appetite. And I honestly did not believe that it would work. And it works great. And it's really nice because I just thought, I wasn't capable of being hungry or having a normal appetite. So, I just hope other people out there, and especially since it's so high risk for, like autistic individuals, neurodivergent, like this should be something included, like when you're diagnosed with autism, ADHD, any neurodivergent issue. And you should have like questions like, oh, well, do you have sensitivities with food? Like, do you have an issue with texture? And again, a lot of people with autism, I was reading, they don't like fruit in general, for example, because it'll taste different every time. You don't know what to expect. But when you eat a potato chip, you know how it'll taste every time. So it's like very comfortable. It's a safe food. So if you have safe foods, it doesn't necessarily mean you have this disorder, but it's still good to look into it, double check. And yeah, again, I wish that every, person diagnosed with those issues would get a check for it because of how prevalent it is in those disorders. To me, it's just like irresponsible not to, like if I was a psychiatrist, I would ask every patient, well, like I said, do you have issues with texture? Do you have a fear of choking? Like that seems pretty noticeable, like it's not really that hard to tell. And even for me, I was like, okay, I think this is getting out of hand and there's probably something wrong because I have literally no interest in food and I'm like not able to eat at all. And I was Googling it and then I was reading about it and I was just so shocked that I had never even heard of it, especially with my background in psychology. That's crazy. Like it's not like, I was studying some random thing. It's like, of all people, I should have known about that because I should be on the lookout. Like any counselor, anyone should be aware of this. And so anyways, I just wanted to spread a little bit of awareness because, this is under talked about, however you want to phrase it. It's not well known, and especially even in the communities where it should be known. So if you have ADHD or autism, this is definitely something good to be aware of. Or if you just have a general disinterest in food. I see a lot of people on Twitter talk about like, I cannot eat like 3 meals a day, I can only eat once, and even then I'll take a few bites and I'm full. And I'm like, that's like, concerning. If you're not just liking it just to like it, if that's like actually your symptoms, then, that's something a bit concerning and you should get it checked out. And, be aware. So again, my doctor told me that my labs were okay. I didn't need to worry about malnutrition. You do. It's good to test still. It's good because they'll see, if your iron is drastically low or something, but you should also just generally know enough about nutrition and make sure that you're getting enough because, a lot of kids too, if you look at their diets and they're eating like Pop-Tarts and, mac and cheese and things that are good and they're fun and like Cheetos, like they're good, fun things. But it's, there are ways to make these dishes more nutritious. I saw someone mixing cottage cheese into smoothies. I haven't tried it just yet, but if it's true that you can't taste it, like they said, that's a great idea. The hemp seeds, for example, there's like 10 grams of protein and a ton of vitamins and minerals, and you can grind it up and just put it into things, and usually you can't taste it, like a pasta sauce or something. So for me, there are food rules that most people have. And so something important as well is you could have this eating disorder, but you could be overweight. And for some people, like it's specific to their food rules. So there are some people with food rules, like this one boy I was reading about, he can only eat white and beige foods. It's pretty a specific food rule. And so he could eat bread, whatever he wants. He could be plump. He could, be overweight with that type of diet because there's a lot of white foods and they're not all healthy, So anyways, like for myself, I am super particular about cheese for some reason. I don't know why. It's like so hard for me. Like people, I know the plastic and cheese thing isn't true, but when people said that, I never ate the Lunchables cheese again. Like they were like, that's not real cheese. Like that isn't even cheese. And I like never touched it. Or like American cheese. I can't remember like what's actually in it, but I really have a heart. Like I actually recently realized that that's what comes on like burgers from fast food. And it gives me a hard time, honestly, because I don't know why. It's just something particular for me. Like nacho cheese foods, I do not, like I'm just super particular about it. And so everyone's food rules can look different. And, for me, I remember being little and people were like, do you know what's in hot dogs? And I was like, no. And they said, oh, it's like all the ground up part. And what I like never, like I have such a hard time eating them now, even if it's like, I know it's like a really good brand or whatever, and it's not the stuff I'm worried about, but it's just hard for me. And another thing too, I saw someone on TikTok with this disorder, and they're talking about how it can be really uncomfortable and hard when you're ordering something and it's different than what you ordered. So like, for example, if you say no pickles and there's pickles on it, like the girl, she wasn't mean or anything to the like service people, but she was just talking about how, it's unfortunate because she got, I think, a Chick-fil-A sandwich, and I think she didn't order spicy and it was spicy or something like that. And she was just saying, like it's unfortunate because it makes it hard for her. Like it's already so hard to try new foods. So it was just hard. And I think that's very common for people with autism as well, where it's like, you just hate when things aren't how you expect it to be. And when I say that, I mean like, obviously nobody likes getting something different than what they ordered, but for autistic people, it can be extreme. So, it's very particular, but it's also pretty common in children especially, which is hard because, you want to help them. But again, doing things like forcing them to eat a meal, it's not that helpful. And I remember being a little kid and I was like, I'm not going to get hungry. And they'll be like, oh, you'll see, like, you'll be hungry in a few hours. And I was like, no, I'm still not hungry. And then, so, they'd have to, and again, like, obviously, if they're not eating at all, yes, you do kind of have to do something. But, instead of maybe like yelling at them or being angry, there's a better approach where it's like, okay, let's talk with a psychiatrist. Let's talk with a therapist. Let's see what kind of safe foods we can find, what kind of foods have, like, how we can make these more nutritious, So anyways, I just wanted to add that because that's an important detail, I think it makes it a bit easier for people watching this who might be like, wait, I, can only eat ham or something, it's the first thing I think of, but, And also it said if you are fearful of throwing up, of choking, of stomach pain. So those are other, considerations. I just don't have that. So, I know a little less about that aspect, but it looks very different in different people. So they're just things to be aware of. So anyways, that's why I'm really big on how can we make, yummy meals more nutrient dense. And I'm also big on mental health. So I wanted to bring awareness to this issue. And for anyone that's listening, I really appreciate you taking your time. Thank you.